All right, so in this video, we're going to go over the proper position for a squat, a lunge, a push-up, a plank, a hinge, and a row. So let's go ahead and start with the squat, okay? So your basic squat, and there are many ways to squat, but in class what we typically do is have people with their feet slightly on the outside of their hips and toes facing forward. To go into a squat, you want to explain that you want to push the hips back and bend the knees at the same time. So it's really important that the hip joint and the knee joint are working in synchronicity with each other, okay? So my hips are going to push back, my knees are going to bend, and then I'm going to reach the bottom of my squat, and then I'm going to come up nice and tall like this, okay? So remember, as your hips push back, we don't want to overdo it so that you get this kind of lumbar curve going on. We want to keep the pelvis nice and straight in line with the spine. That's why those pelvic tilts are so important, okay? And then go down like this again and come up. Now with pelvis, if you do find that people are giving you this arch back, what I have them do is hold the position here and then just tuck the pelvis forward a little bit. Not so they're like this, but just tuck it forward so they have a nice long spine and then come up all the way straight, okay? So at the end of the squat, the legs should be straight and the hips should be straight. Everything should be in one nice straight line, okay? So that's how I teach people to do a squat. If the knees start doing some funky things, I have them look down and see what their knees are doing, and then I have them try to put even amounts of weight into both feet as they go down into their squat and come up. Now remember, a squat is more of a motion that you're going to do to sit down, okay, like sitting down on a chair. The next thing that we'll review is a hinge. So a lot of times we'll do a hinge or a deadlift in class, and a lot of people don't know how to do that exactly right. So with the hinge, what we want is we want our toes to face forward, and we start again with a nice long spine. Now, when I go into a hinge, my hips and my knees are still working in synchronicity with each other. It's not a squat, so I'm not sitting down on something. It's more of you're bending from the waist, and you're almost going to create a 90-degree angle with your legs and your torso, okay? So here's what happens. My hips move a little faster than my knees, but they both start and stop at the same time. And then I'm going to come up really, really tall right here. So hips push back, knees bend at the same time. There's going to be just a slight bend in my knees though. My hips are pushing back more, and then I come up really tall. Now, a lot of times what people will do in the hinge is they'll go like this, all right? So that's why those thoracics that we do are so awesome, because what happens is when they learn how to do the thoracic mobility and they learn how to straighten their spine, it's a lot easier to do that in a bent over position. So if someone's going down like this, what I first tell them is to try to push their chest forward, okay? Now, if that doesn't work, then what I have them do is drop their weights, because this is a really important thing to get right so that they don't get injured. And I have them go into this position, okay? And then I have them try to straighten their spine from both ends, okay? So they're literally trying to pull their spine forward, push the sternum forward. I'll put my hands right on their thoracic spine and kind of push through it this way, and then come up. Some other people respond if you tell them to almost arch the back, because that will bring them to a nice neutral place. Okay, and other people respond if you tell them to push the chest forward and almost pretend like, you know, you're trying to expand the shoulders, okay? And this exercise really helps them understand how to, you know, curve over, straighten the spine. Tell them, feel what it feels like when it's curved, feel what it feels like when it's straight. All right, so from that hinge position, you can do a row. So with the rows, again, we're in a nice hinge position so that our elbows, oh, excuse me, you know what? A couple more things to address on the hinge. With the hinge, if you see that somebody's like this, so they're overarching their lumbar spine, the lower back, you can have them do a pelvic tilt. All right, so the pelvic tilts work awesome in this position because they bring that spine so it's nice and straight. Again, we don't want them here. but we want them here, all right? Okay, so now let's move on to the row in hinge position. So you've got your hinge position, knees are slightly bent, and remember our torso should be almost parallel with the floor. We're going to bring the elbows back. Now on this one, a lot of people will sometimes lose their hinge position, so we want to make sure that they keep that, and you cue them the way I told you before. Sometimes they'll row up like this, so we want to make sure that they keep the shoulders down, chest stays open, and they're just pulling the shoulders and the elbows back. Okay, so these two joints working in synchronicity with each other. Just squeezing the scapula, so squeezing those shoulder blades together, and then releasing, squeezing back, and then releasing right here. Okay, so you want to make sure that they don't do this, they don't curve their spine and get into funky positions there. I also cue them, telling them to bring their arms sort of like diagonal up, and not too high here, and almost just in line with the belly button. The dumbbell should be in line with the belly, okay? All right, so that's a row. So we've covered the squat, the hinge, and the row. Now I'm gonna cover lunges, okay? So with lunges, we want both knees, again, bending at the same time. A slight forward lean in the torso, all right? So I'm gonna put 1 foot forward. Well, first I'll show you front view. 1 foot forward, 1 foot back. We don't want them stacking their feet like this, but we want them to just go out from the hips comfortably. We also want the stance to be wide enough so that they don't get into this kind of position, okay? So the stance should be wide enough so that they don't get into a hunch position. And I'm gonna show you from the back, we also don't want that to happen. That's where those side-to-side pelvic tilts come in handy. So from the side, looks like this. The back of my foot is up on the wall. My front foot is flat. I'm gonna come really straight here, and I'm gonna bend both knees. And then I'm going to straighten it up, okay? So you don't want to lean back. You also don't want one knee to bend and one knee to stay straight. And you also don't want to lean too far forward, all right? So everything for me is just a slight forward lean in the torso, and my knees are bending at the same time, all right? And there's, of course, a lot of lunge variations we can do, but this is the most basic, well, one of the most basic lunges, I should say. So that's a forward lunge. Now for side lunge, what you want are the feet wide spread, all right? Spread apart, and you're going to hinge back, and you're going to bend one knee at a time. So for the side lunge, here's what we see a lot, okay? We see this situation happening. That lean again. We see people going this way. We see people going that way. What we want to happen is we want a slight hinge at the hip, and the knee to bend at the same time, okay? So it looks like this, slight hinge at the hip. We don't want anyone slumping forward this way. Chest stays above glutes, that's a big cue that I give, and everything coming up straight, okay? So again, hips go back, knees bend same time, and then come up nice and straight. Hips go back, knees bend same time, come up nice and straight. So they should be feeling it in the front of their leg and in the side of their glute right there, okay? So again, lots of variations you can do on side lunges. That's one of the most basic. All right, the next thing is a plank. Okay, so with plank, we want to make sure that the shoulders are down and the pelvis is straight in the plank. I don't tell people to tense their body in a plank. I don't, because it will automatically tense all on its own to hold the position. We don't want anybody feeling any tension in their lower back on the plank. All right, so we want to make sure that this is not happening, or that's not happening, or this isn't happening. All right, so you can do a lot of awesome position-specific mobility to get a plank better, and I'm going to show you a couple of them right now. So if people are in these funky positions in the plank, what I'll normally do is have them go on all fours. Okay, I'll show them what they're doing first. Have them go on all fours, and then what we do is try to lengthen the spine in this position so that they're, a little more focused on it and not weighted. All right, so they can do pelvic tilts here to bring their pelvis into the right place so that they're not arching their back. Okay, now if their shoulders are going up to the ears, we can have them move the shoulders up to the ears, press them down, move them up, press them down so that they understand how to engage the lats, all right? Then from here, we can take a nice plank position, all right? So those are a couple of position-specific things you can do. So the next exercise is a push-up. So from here, elbows go out, they bend at the same time, and the head needs to stay back. All right, so we don't want the head pushing forward. Again, we don't want the back arching like this. We want everything to stay in alignment. Elbows will bend, and come up straight. Now, people can do this on their knees too. On their knees, you want to make sure they're not here. So you want to make sure their hips are still facing, pushing forward without overarching the spine. All right, so we can lay down and then come up that way. Now, if people are just starting our program, they can probably just do a little elbow bend, and that is perfectly acceptable. All right, so just make sure that they stay nice and safe. That's the main thing. All right, so those are a couple exercises and how to cue them and how to correct any of your boot campers or semi-private training clients' techniques. Thank you.